We are live, and I'm going to admit ADS.
Okay. All right, this is Senate Appropriations. It's Friday, January 24th. We're going to talk to ADS about the Budget Adjustment Act. We have a couple people. Thank you, Senator Watson. People here from ADS. I'll let ADS folks introduce yourselves, and we'll introduce ourselves just so you know who's in the room, and then you can tell us what we need to know about budget adjustment. And one of the things is a lot of the other budget adjustment presentations that we've had talked about ADS and the service level agreement increases that the different agencies have had. So we also thought that would be another reason to have you in. So go ahead. I don't know Andrea, do you want to go first?
Happy to, Mr. Chair. Thank you for having us today, and hello to all the committee members. I am pinch hitting today for Secretary Riley Hughes, as she is not feeling well, and she is deeply apologetic for that. But our Chief Financial Officer, Kate Slocum, and I feel like we can help answer your questions, and we're happy to be here. So thank you again for this opportunity. Kate, I'll let you introduce yourself if you'd like.
Sure. Hello, committee. My name is Kate Slocum. I am the Chief Financial Officer for the Agency of Digital Services. And I've seen some of you before, and some of you, hello for the first time.
Okay. So we'll do our round of introduction.
Sure. Pat Brennan, Grand Isle District.
Jenny Lyons, Chittenden Southeast.
Andrew Perchlick, Washington District.
Rich Westman, the Lamoille District in Fletcher.
Bob Norris, Franklin County, and Albert in the County of Grand Isle.
And Watson, Washington District, which includes Stowe, Orange, and Braintree.
Okay, did you have a sheet that you sent? Can't remember. Yeah.
We do have a presentation. And
yeah, you have yeah, that would be helpful.
Kate, would you like me to share, or would you like to share?
I can share.
Great.
Just give me a moment.
I think I neglected to mention for the record that I am the Deputy Secretary here at ADS. I just kind of launched into saying hello, but that is my role here.
Yeah, since we have new committee members, it would be good to go through the overview. We don't need to spend too much time. There's a lot here, but I think a quick overview would be helpful.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Great. So Andrea, do you want to start, or?
Oh, I think I'm happy to hand it off to you, Kate. I think we're here to discuss the FY25 budget adjustment. So,
yeah.
And answer your questions.
Yes. So, we don't formally have a request in the budget adjustment this year. There is one line item which Commissioner Gresham spoke to that is directly related to the Agency of Digital Services, and that really is just a correction to language. There was a decimal place off when the big bill was put together last year. So that's totally a correction. Other than that, we're here to talk about what you may have heard from other customers, I shouldn't say customers, what you may have heard from other agencies and departments around their budgetary revisions for the FY25 budget as it stands today. So I want to just quickly walk through our funding structure at the Agency of Digital Services. We are primarily funded through an internal service fund. There's actually two internal service funds that we use to carry out our services to agencies and departments across the executive branch. Primarily that falls within the IT Communications Fund, also referred to as an ISF, and it's the CIT ISF, which you might hear. That's made up of a couple different recovery methodologies. One is the ADS allocation, which some of you are probably familiar with. And then the other side is the demand side. So this is the side that is really reactive to the needs of each agency and department. And we have a couple different methodologies for that recovery, whether it be from employees, professional service employees like project managers, application developers, application support specialists, enterprise architects that are deployed to support agency needs, whether it be supporting an application or implementing a new application. We have a variety of professionals that we can deploy to those, and we recover those costs through an hourly rate. Right now, our rate structure is set on 2 rates, one at $84 an hour and one at $88 an hour. And that really is dependent on the classification of those individuals. So project managers, enterprise architects are primarily within the $80 an hour, and most of the the application support professionals are under the $84 an hour rate structure. That rate structure has not changed since the creation of our agency. So those rates were developed in 2017, and it is 2024, and that is something that we definitely have our eye on and does create pressures for us, but we're not here to talk about that today. The other recovery methodologies that we have are around telephony. So for analog or VoIP phones, customers request those services from us. We work with our vendors to avail those services to them, and they pay for the usage. Then there's bespoke charges, which are really specific to an individual agency or department's need. Maybe there's a particular software, SaaS software or perpetual software that they might need to conduct services, and we will buy that on behalf of them, and then we will send that cost over to the department when we send the keys to the license or when we deploy the hardware. There is no upcharge in that. What we do is try to get the best price for them by using commodities of scale to buy, to use, larger buying power on behalf of the entire executive branch to get the best price for our customers. And we've seen great success in that. We have, we will present to this committee our annualized savings and cost avoidance that we've seen as a result, partially due to our buying structure, our buying power. But year over year, we have provided at least a few $1 million annually in savings. And then the final demand recovery methodology, and this is the one that you've heard about today, is the ADS SLA. And the ADS SLA really covers the cost for those enterprise products that we provide across the executive branch and even into the legislative branch and the judiciary. Judiciary did break away from us in some aspects, but there still are some services that we do provide to them. It's very minimal at this point. But we do provide services to the legislature to some capacity under the SLA. Those are things like hosting for storage capacity of files and documents. They are for various enterprise offerings that we have, such as things like Microsoft or Adobe, some of our case management software, our identity software. Those are all covered under the SLA, document management. So that's our recovery structure in a nutshell, really quickly. To kind of go back to the allocation is intended to cover the core services, the backbone services that are necessary for an IT agency to exist. So you've got things like the network costs that every user across the executive branch utilizes. So we take that cost and we calculate it, and then the recovery is based on headcount per agency and department. So if a department has 900 employees, they will pay a cost per that employee. And this is a list of all the products that are offered under the current ADS allocation. Sorry, was there a question?
No, go ahead.
Okay, great. I talked through timesheet already. Again, that's for professional state services, professional IT state services. And telephony and bespoke, again, these are in our demand side. So, you know, they are really based on consumption or need of the customer. So the allocation is what seems to be coming up in needs around the BAA this year. And where we're seeing, there was a little bit with it was states attorneys and sheriffs. And the reasoning behind their increase in need is, as testified by Commissioner Gresham, that they have an increased utilization of SharePoint storage. So SharePoint is a product of Microsoft, and each agency has an allotment of SharePoint usage that's tied to their license. What we're seeing in states, attorneys, and sheriffs was an overcapacity of that allowance. They were utilizing far, far, far more than their allotment. So we worked with, when this came to light, we worked with Annie Noonan specifically, but others on the team to say, hey, did you know you're using this much space? And let's talk about options for maybe reducing your usage and better management of your files. And as you've heard, it's really around body cam images and videos. We are still working out a plan around what a better storage solution could be for them, as well as for the Attorney General's office, who has the same issue. And there's one other office that's not coming to mind quickly. I'm really sorry. But we do have a pilot program going on with the Department of Public Safety around storage needs in this capacity. So we're working that out with them, doing a test to see, is this successful? Is this a right move for this type of data storage? Once we've completed that process, we hope to bring others into the mix, and states attorneys and sheriffs is well aware of that and is working collaboratively with us. But as a result of their overcapacity usage, we've had to buy more SharePoint capacity to accommodate their need. So that's a cost that has to be pushed along to the customer. Like I said, we're an internal service fund. We don't get direct appropriations for services like this. So we have to figure out, how do we recover this, much like a business would. For every dollar we spend, we need to have a way to repay that dollar. So this wasn't known at the time that the 25 budget was built. It's something that's come to fruition since that time. And I think it's been, really a good process working with them, trying to identify that this is a real thing and we need to work through it.
Kate,
Other areas.
Could you explain to the committee about how the bills are they're a year in arrears, so they wouldn't necessarily see current costs? Yeah. Well, so in this particular instance, because this is a one-off situation, we are able to bill them more timely. For this increased SharePoint utilization, we actually are billing them on a monthly basis, so that if their consumption does go down, we can make sure that we are billing them appropriately and not overbilling them. However, that's a little bit different than the typical SLA. Typical SLA costs are billed annually. So we do a snapshot report in the late spring, around May timeframe-ish, of all the utilization of the products and services that fall under the SLA. From that, we validate that information and we turn that into a bill for our customers, which is usually delivered sometime in the late summer, early fall timeframe. In that billing, it is
reflective of the costs that ADS incurred in the prior fiscal year. And it's reflective of the consumption of those agencies in the prior fiscal year. When we deliver that bill, we also supply with a projection based on the known utilization that's found in their bill. So if they have 500 licenses for document management, we're going to assume that they're going to keep those licenses unless we're aware that something's being turned off. And we're going to provide what we know the cost to be for a projection to support their next year's budget build. The timing of that is so very critical, and it is so very challenging to meet it in line with the budget development. So, for example, when we issued these SLA bills last fall when budget development was happening, it didn't reach departments in time for them to actually build their budgets. So they had to use what they knew their historical spend was in this space to inform their budget. And I can't really speak to how they went about it. I can only assume those are questions that are really appropriate for the various financial directors and CFOs of the agencies and departments that are coming forward. But what I can tell you is, how the bills are generated and how the projections are provided. So it's not the best model, but it's the model that we inherited from our former Department of Information and Innovation. And it is something that we definitely are aware of, and we are working with finance and management on a revised funding structure moving forward. And we hope to be able to talk about that in the near future, because it's challenging for us and it's challenging for agencies and departments. We're very well aware of it. We do try to keep the lines of communication open as much as possible for all of these agencies. I've been on the other side. I've been in state government for over 20 years, always in a financial capacity. And one of the reasons I came over to this agency is because I wanted to be part of building financial transparency into IT spend, because I can understand how challenging it is to build a budget, especially in the IT space. So, so you can see this slide shows the growth in the SLA from 23 to 25, and what our expenditures were 23 through 24. So remember, when we say our expenditures for FY24 were 27.6 million, that would be reflected in the 25 bill that we issued to departments and agencies. I think that this is a pretty important slide to show the steady growth in this area that's been seen across the board. If there's any questions, I'm happy to take it on before I move on.
I had a question basically on the SLA information. It made sense, your example of SAS and the body cam, which I assume is also what the crime victims advocates and probably HRC, the Human Rights Commission, is also using those, I would assume, in different cases.
Yes.
But there's other ones, that are, DCF has over $1 million. And so there's a lot of other total. I have like 3.3 million in SLA increases. So can you give an example from some of the other agencies, just that the body camera one is an easy one to understand, but I'm just wondering if kind of what's happening in the other agencies, departments.
Yeah, so we haven't seen a growth like that in the SLA overall. And when we look to the various agencies and departments, we actually haven't seen a growth to that magnitude for them either. So I cannot tell you where the driver is on that. I could only speculate. And I would say that that's really, to understand that correctly would be to go back to those agencies and departments to assist.
I would agree with that. Yeah, that's a hard question for us to to answer, but we do know that it's not in Microsoft licenses. That came up earlier in testimony, but that is not a cost driver for this SLA.
Okay, so we would ask them, and they would more than likely go to your bill and try to figure out why that SLA was increased from the prior year.
Yeah, I mean, if there were increases that agencies or departments saw from the prior year's bill to the current year's bill, it would all be around consumption, and all of that detail we provide very heavy detail with these invoices, because we know that, you know, there's a lot of unique funding sources that are used to support these costs, and they need to understand exactly how the licenses are being utilized and for what purpose. In some cases, they need to know that by employee. In other cases, they need to know that by system, just due to their unique funding structures. But it is all based on consumption. So it could be a result of an application may have been stood up, or a need was increased in a certain area. And as a result, they would have a higher bill than the prior year. And I'll just say that I know many of you are aware, we are in the very beginning stages of the design phase of the ERP, the Enterprise Resource Planning System. And that system will be able to provide far more transparency around these changes year to year, as well as provide us the ability to hopefully do more dynamic projections for customers moving forward in this space. There are some constraints that we face on a daily due to our current ERP systems and the level of data that's able to be supplied in those and pulled out from those. So just a little plug for that program.
Okay, and Ms. Slocum, so you don't have a total of all the adjustments that the agencies are having. Like you just send out the bills for the SLA usage, but you're not kind of calculating that as an agency total. We could either go to the agency, the budget and finance, or we'd have to total up ourselves. You guys don't have that as a separate number. Does that make sense?
So from agency to agency, year to year, is that what you're asking?
No, like how much total SLA changes are we seeing in the budget adjustment from the whatever 12 different departments that are asking for it?
So the growth that we saw overall in the SLA charges from ADS from 24 to 25 was just over $2 million, was $2.3 million.
Was that part of the fiscal year budget, or that's just that's being asked in this BAA? I'm talking about the
actual bill. So in 24 to 25, the billing that ADS provided was an increase of the $2.3 million. In the BAA ask that you're seeing, I believe it's a total of 4.5 million, I think. I'd have to look back at the worksheet that Commissioner Gresham provided. And in AHS, I think it was $3.6 million in total. But that doesn't equate one for one for the increase from the 24 to the 25 SLA overall in all billing. So I can't speak to exactly what the pressures were to lead them to put in their BAA as they have.
Okay, well, maybe we'll go back to Gresham and ask for that accounting of that 4.5, because I have a sheet that shows more like 3.3 total, but I don't know if I have everything on there. So we'll ask the commissioner to provide that information.
Great.
Okay. And do you have more information that you wanted to share?
Not specific around the BAA. If there's questions, we're of course happy to respond to those. We do have a little bit in here about the IT modernization fund, but that's more informational. You know, that this fund was established in 22, and there are finite projects that have been approved under that, all of which are underway, some of which are close to completion. So we're making great progress and strides in that area. All of that information is available through our dashboard on our website, and happy to share that with the committee if they're interested in accessing that dashboard.
Okay.
And that's all we have in our presentation. But of course, if there's any questions, Deputy Secretary Andrea and I are happy to respond.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. Do we have any questions for the agency?
No, this time.
It's pretty straightforward for now, and we want more details on the total, so we'll get those separately.
Great.
So I think we can let you go back to work.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us. I appreciate it. Have a great day.
Thanks for being here.
Bye-bye.
Hi. Okay, committee, we continually end early, and then we have a break, and then we don't come back, but I think I assume DCF is coming in person. So when you see Chris Winters, then you should be back here.
Okay.
So probably
15 minutes.
15 minutes.
Then I can do.
Let's say 2:25. I bet you you'll be here early.
2:25. He'll be early.